Are you willing to literally come face to face with death? Over 6 million dead Parisians, stacks of bones and human skulls in arm's reach, crazy underground secret parties, and tales of the adventurous illegally sneaking in through old sewer drains only to get lost in the winding dark damp tunnels. There's no doubt that the catacombs are rich with history, and it's a unique spooky experience you're unlikely to find anywhere else. Welcome to Paris's underworld. Well, does the modern tour experience live up to the hype? Well, let's go find out. Good morning. Made it to the catacombs. Super excited. Today's the day, and it's actually like perfect weather out. Read online that sometimes the line can get up to 2 hours, but right now there's like nobody here, so definitely recommend going to the earliest slot possible. So let's check it out inside. Okay, to cover the basics, the catacombs are open from 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. and are located in the calm 14th arrondissement. It's slightly outside the center of Paris, but still very easily accessible. You can take the metro and get off at Denfert Rochereau via lines 4 and 6, or the RER line B train. So the metro is a little confusing at first, but once you get it, it's actually super simple. And it's kind of like New York, where it's the same price, no matter how many stops you're going within Paris. So it's like 190 euros. Or just take a cab or Uber. Prices and travel times will vary depending on where you're coming from. Like I mentioned, it's a popular spot, so I would recommend going early, the earliest 10 a.m. slot if possible, or there's also a night tour option if you want to really ramp up the creep factor. In the middle of the day, you'll likely be waiting, and these lines can get long. I'm talking 2+ hours. With that said, be sure to book online, and don't expect to get tickets the same day of booking. Tickets start around 30 euros, but can go over 100 for special skip-the-line guided tours with restricted access. Luckily, we booked the basic, self-guided tour in advance at the earliest time slot, so we didn't wait more than 10 minutes. The tour generally lasts around 1 hour, and even in the heat of summer, down in the catacombs, it stays a pretty chilly 57 degrees Fahrenheit, 14 Celsius, so dress accordingly. And one last disclaimer, if you get claustrophobic, this is definitely not the place for you. Alright, let's get down there. Alright, we made it down into the catacombs. It's pretty dark. It's way deeper than I thought it would be. It's actually like way deeper than the metro and everything else. You've got these little informational things. It actually works really well. You just hold up like a phone. A couple different languages. It's nice and chilly down here though. And it's actually pretty warm up there today, so bring a jacket. Yeah, you literally just like hold these things up. It's like listening to a podcast. Super informational. Really interesting history, how it started as a lime quarry and basically was forgotten about until Paris ran out of room for the cemetery. Well, we'll see what's around the corner. This place is huge. The catacombs are technically an ossuary, simply meaning a place in which the bones of the dead are placed. And this is the king of them all. We started off by entering an unassuming building and winding down a long spiral staircase. Already, we were below the Paris metro, and these catacombs plunge even further down to over 200 feet deep. Spanning 300 cavernous kilometers, it's pretty easy to see how you could get lost down here. We wandered through a number of long, twisting limestone tunnels, then finally came to a large stone threshold etched with an eerie message. Arrête, c'est ici l'empire de la mort. Stop, here is the empire of the dead. As soon as you crossed through this passage, you were immediately greeted by a stack of bones and hollow eye sockets staring back at you. I quickly felt a chill wash over me, and it's hard to comprehend just how many souls rest down here. Rows and rows of skulls and bones, it's insane. In places, they are stacked back to the walls 10 feet in each direction. It's easy to forget that every one of these bones once made up the body of a person not much unlike you or me today, with families, jobs, hopes, and dreams. But the bones did not all originate here, perfectly stacked into artistic columns. The story of the catacombs began well before these famous bones. Back in the 1st century, the invading Romans dug open-pit quarries to mine the precious limestone. This limestone is what built Paris, and is the stone you still see make up the classic structures throughout the streets of the city. Notre Dame, the Louvre, primarily built of limestone. Fast forward to the 4th century, and the underground quarries began. For centuries, the mining continued, slowly constructing a massive, hidden labyrinth of rooms and tunnels resting under the feet of Parisians just going about their everyday lives. The mining slowed, and by 1774 it was much forgotten, until the weight of the city collapsed and it gave way to a severe sinkhole, swallowing some of the city with it. The people of Paris were horrified by the thought that themselves and their homes could be buried at any moment, so the quarries began to be explored, mapped, and reinforced. Around this time, Paris was a bustling city, but equally as filthy, with terrible sewage, garbage, and overflowing ancient cemeteries that had served Paris for hundreds of years, particularly through the Black Death, the plague that claimed the lives of half the city's population. But with this problem, the catacombs were born. King Louis XIV declared many of Paris's famous cemeteries to be excavated and the bones relocated to the vast underground space. First dumped in haphazardly by the load just to get them out of the way, then later rearranged as you see them today following the revolution.
It's crazy. There's just paths in like every direction that are closed. It's like thousands and thousands, literally millions of bones. Super eerie, but really interesting. The history of it's all really interesting too. Definitely spooky though. It's just crazy. I can't believe how far it just goes and goes and goes. It's just like rows.
With the bones of 6 million people, today this ossuary holds the remains of 3 times the current population of Paris. It's hard to imagine every person you pass in the city neatly stacked down here, only then to triple it. To put this crazy number into perspective, when the catacombs were constructed, the population of Paris was only 600,000, 10 times less than the number of dead. You could go down a rabbit hole with the number of wild stories there are about the catacombs, but one of my favorites is that in September of 2004, French police discovered an underground movie theater. The makeshift theater contained a movie screen, a kitchen, and of course, a fully stocked bar, along with telephones and electricity brought in from an unknown location. Way bigger than I thought it would be. Not to mention it was like part of it just wasn't even shown. It's crazy. Definitely eye-opening. Macabre, all of the words. So we walked underground all the way from here and just came out here in a totally different area. Wow. Well, just got out of the catacombs. That was insane. Just like, definitely puts things in perspective. It's so weird seeing all of those like skulls and bones and thinking that every single one of those people was just like a person, even if it was, you know, hundreds of years ago. It's just so wild. So highly recommend. I mean, it's an experience like almost another that I've done, that's for sure. I think it's done in like a really respectful and really interesting way, and just seeing the history of it, how the limestone like quarries started, how they filled up, how they emptied out the different graves, some of the different historical people that have been there or buried there, events that have happened there. Really, really cool. Definitely recommend getting there as early as possible. We were, I think, the earliest time slot, and it was we were moving pretty decent clip, but wasn't too crazy while we were there, but as the kind of time went on, it was definitely getting more and more busy. So yeah, highly recommend. Looks like there's a little brasserie right behind me, so I think we're gonna go grab a bite to eat because I haven't eaten anything today. But yeah, amazing, really wild, especially considering you just like think it's underneath the streets right here and who knows where else. The catacombs are huge. Wild. All right, we're walking back towards where we entered. I think there's a train station right across the street.
The brasserie that was right behind us is like named after the catacombs, and I think it's super touristy, so didn't have the best reviews. We're gonna skip out on that one. Try to go find some food up here, maybe just take the train station back to Saint-Germain or where we're staying, and see what we can find. Getting hungry. All right, we're jumping on the train. We're gonna go to a famous cafe, Café de Flore in Saint-Germain. M4, right?
After the catacombs, I recommend rejoining the land of the living by making your way to the 6th arrondissement, Saint-Germain. There are a number of famous cafes in this area where you can sit back, grab a bite and a drink, do a little people watching, and just generally lighten up the mood after that admittedly morbid experience. Saint-Germain was historically the literary heart of Paris, located on the left bank, and is now one of the more lively and trendy neighborhoods, but it's also quite touristy. You'll find plenty of shopping and food options, but if you want to go to one of these famous spots, Café de Flore, Le Dumagot, Le Pocop, or Brasserie Libre, be prepared for a wait. These cafes have been staples of Paris for decades, if not centuries, and were a popular meeting spot for artists, writers, and the leading minds of the day such as Sartre, Oscar Wilde, Picasso, and Hemingway, just to name a few. So whether you're in Paris for a week or a weekend, be sure to add the catacombs to the top of your list. It's an experience you won't soon forget. And if you enjoyed this little dance with the dead, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's plenty more stories coming. But until then, cheers, and I'll see you out there.